Maybe it's not a very funny joke, but tragic really. But in any event, it was a bit like that in Hemel Hempstead. You had to come down either for Watford or Luton, and I came down for Watford because that was mainly my set of chums that I was in. But I can promise you this: Watford Football Club have never received from me the price of a single purchase of merchandise, a single ticket gate, a single a ticket at the gate, or a single season ticket. This is Bushy. I had an argument once about Bushy with some Germans. They said es ist Bushai. It is not Bushy, it is Bushai. You have to pronounce it Bushai. I can imagine that the person that they had that came from here, I think his name was Graham, when asked where he came from, said Bushai, like that. And so they said, yeah, this is Bushai. You are not pronouncing it properly. He came from there. He knows how it is pronounced. It is Bushai. So,
welcome aboard this London Midland service to London Euston.
But you had to be a Watford supporter. I promise you, I've never spent anything on merchandise, tickets, season tickets, pay-per-view to watch one of their games. In fact, I have never actually watched a Watford game. I've never even seen a Watford goal being scored. Other than Graham Taylor, I couldn't mention any of the managers. Other than Elton John, I couldn't mention any of the various owners that might have had. Other than Luther Blissett, I couldn't mention any of the players that it's ever had in its whole history. So I am the single most useless supporter that a football club has ever been able to claim as their own. I never had a scarf of Watford. I've never had anything. It's just you had to say one thing or another. You had to say Luton or Watford, and I preferred to say Watford than Luton, and avoid a certain amount of aggro that way. But I didn't have anything to do with it. And if football, as a sport, if its fans were all as mean as me and unwilling to support the actual thing, even by paying it any attention whatsoever, football would have died in this country a long time ago. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So here we go. Mainly trees that you can see, just snatches of things. Mainly houses through the trees. This place is called Carpenter's Park. Not Carpenter's Park, Carpenter's Park. And it's kind of like on the cusp of being London. Watford, the Greenbelt kind of went around Watford because Watford was obviously around for a lot longer than the Greenbelt was thought of. So Watford anyway is like a kind of incursion into the Greenbelt. But this Greenbelt, the Greenbelt has holes in it anyway. But then what belt doesn't? You have to use that so that the buckle actually works. You need holes in your belt. Sometimes I've actually gone to leather makers, belt makers, and asked them to put extra holes in my belts when I've been losing weight. They get used for a while and then they don't become used after I get bigger again. But the best thing that you can do is just keep walking, using public transport for the longer journeys, leaving the car at home. There's one piece of fuel or one dose of fuel. Obviously, there's much more fuel to pull a train down a track than it takes to pull a car. But it's not like 100 times the amount of fuel. It might be maybe 10 times the amount of fuel to run this train into London than to take a car to London. For the fuel it takes to or the energy, because it's obviously it's not fuel, it's electricity. But for the energy that it takes to pull 10 cars, normal family cars, down into London, maybe taking 15 people, we got a train with maybe, well, it's got 8, this one's got 8 carriages, each carriage has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, well, 35, isn't it, people? 35 times 8, well maybe let's say, even by now, with the element of fullness that we've got, it's over 100 people here in this train right now. Maybe 150, but they're certainly getting 200, 300 per train in. That's interesting. That really looks like our old Harrow office of Hilly Hopkins over there. Harrow and Wealdstone anyway. I think that was the old Harrow office. I don't think they've still got it. I'm not sure if they have. I think no, that was closed. That was closed even when I was still working for them. And the Hemel Hempstead office is the only one of the ones that they had that they still got. I think even the Watford office moved in the end and isn't there anymore. And if I'm not mistaken, it might even be Baker Tilly in the old place where they used to be. The Watford office is about Baker Tilly, but I'm not sure. It just looks like a very familiar address. That's Budleigh, isn't it? Huge great big Budleigh. So Harrow and Wealdstone. Wealdstone being Weald is an old Anglo-Saxon word, cognate with the German word Wald, or wood. So like the Weald was a wood, and the stone is obviously it comes from Anglo-Saxon. It was Stan in Anglo-Saxon. But Wealdstone would presumably have been like a big rock in the middle of the forest. I'm not sure the rock is still here. The forest certainly isn't still here. But presumably that's why it got the name Wealdstone. Harrow is well known, of course, for a very exclusive secondary school. Harrow and Eton being the name of the names of the two highest reputed. It's like Oxford and Cambridge for the universities, Eton and Harrow. But that's not based on entrance requirements. That's based just on money. Okay. So maybe you can get a scholarship to Eton and Harrow. I don't want to say you can't, but certainly I don't think that the proportions of people getting in there on merit are quite as high as they are in the actual universities at the top there, Cambridge and Oxford. At least that wasn't the case in my day. I shouldn't really talk about how things are now, but I'm conjecturing. If anybody knows different, of course, as ever, on my channel, all my films have got a right to reply. You can talk in the comments all you like. The only thing that you ever get knocked off for is if you do something illegal or spam, do hate speech, even hate speech. Normally I let it go because it's stupid, nobody takes it seriously. This makes you look stupid if you do it. But insulting my guests, making like hurtful comments about my guests, I'd probably take that away as well. If I have a guest talking and somebody makes a hurtful comment, because I don't expect everyone to be as thick-skinned as I am. If you want to say something about me, then go ahead. And if you think it's going to affect me, I really feel sorry for you. To go ahead. So yes, Christopher Clugston was baited into trying to bait me the other day, and he accused me on my Google channel actually has my real name on it of using another false name. I can only assume that either he's a complete moron or he was actually just doing a bit of self-irony. I just hope it was the latter, otherwise there's really no hope for him. But so here we go. I suppose it's worth something to do a whole unbroken record of what it looks like to take the train from Hemel Hempstead into Euston Station. on HD, which is what I'm using most of the time on this camera. I have got, oh, there we go, oyster cards ready. I don't have an oyster card, I'll probably get turned into an oyster. Oysters come and card with us, the wall rusted besieged. There we go. That's that's Wembley Stadium, isn't it? The new Wembley that they took a long time to build, and of course I've got a train so you can't even see it. But between times you'll see. Oh, how ridiculously long this train is. Oh, yeah, we can see it now. You see that? There we go. Wembley Stadium, Wembley Arena or whatever they call it. So this is the Wembley area of London anyhow. A big sorting depot of the Royal Mail. I've worked in one of those. Actually fairly fun around Christmas. It gets very hectic, but it's, you know, I actually quite enjoyed it. I'd go home tired, but I quite enjoyed it. It's not well paid either, and of course you don't, you get bossed about and given to do the work that the regulars don't like much. But you get talked down to as well if you're young doing it. But they expect you to have no brain, but that's reasonable because most young people these days seem to be hopeless. Most young people in this country seem to know really almost nothing, and beyond being able to sort of prod at some computers, which even that they don't seem to do as well as they're reputed to. They seem to be practically, you know, walking around with 2 left hands and 2 left feet. Really worrying for this country, the state of education, and what people come out, you know. Everybody getting a whole clutch of A's, but knowing that almost nothing. If you look at the quiz shows.
Okay, thank you very much. Tickets, please. Lovely, that's fine, sir. Thank you very much. Tickets, please.
There we go. I didn't have an oyster, but my travel card was accepted just on site. He obviously gets used to knowing what to look for very quickly, like the date. I expect that's the important thing. If I'd have been in yesterday's one, he probably would have spotted it quite quickly because it's the biggest thing on the thing. Let me show you, by the way. It's huge, very big. You can see it at a distance even. So if it's got the right date on it, it's got travel card written on it, it's probably paid for and coded up, yeah. It's possible. I've got another one of those. But it's possible, I suppose, for somebody to have a little printer that prints on cardboard and they work out how to do it, and that they simply print one off for themselves every morning and just wave that in case of need. But it wouldn't work because when you get to the other end, you've got to use it on the barriers, and then you've got to have that magnetic strip that works. And you might get past this guy who just looks at the date and says, yeah, that's fine. What you're going to do when you're trying to get through the barrier at the other end, or when you want to use it on the metro, which you're usually going to want to, sorry, metro is not the name for the London Underground, but if you want to use it on the London Underground, or, you know, you might get away with it in a bus, but you're not going to get away with it on the Underground because they read the metal strip. It's very soft cardboard, and it has to get very sweaty, and it absorbs all the sweat, and it gets about twice the thickness by the end of a day in which you're marching around London sweating in your pocket. It gets about twice as thick as it is at the start, and very soft and leathery. And I have difficulty getting the machine, but they still read them. Even then, they read the magnetic strip. I haven't often had to actually say, "Guard, help me with this." Last night I was saying, "God help me with this," but that's only because I was a little bit inebriated going home from the event. Got a talking to off my mother. So there we go. I'm just showing it like it is. I'm not trying to show a good side or a bad side of England. I'm just showing you what's actually here. I've done filming of trains, train windows in other countries, Czech Republic, Poland especially. So you know what things are like there. They can be good and they can be pretty ugly and nasty. It seems to be the way with trains, you know, generally speaking, that train lines tend to go through rather derelict areas sometimes. People don't want to live or do nice things next to train lines because of the noise of the trains, and so sometimes, you know, when you're actually in a train, you're looking out the window, you're not going to see something which is that nice. It's just the remainder, the leftovers of land that you see. But you do see things from the back end. You see things from behind, almost, in a sense, which can be interesting. I mean, a lot of what you see walking, coming down a train is like this, you know, just greenery and other tracks. It's interesting, various levels. That's deep down there for some reason. Maybe it's something people go to take the train carriage down to repair the roof or something. But in the main, you're looking at buildings from a different angle than when you see them on the street. So there you go. I've seen that all my life. That little round building, that rotunda or whatever. I call it a rotunda. I don't know if it's called a rotunda. Probably it's had 6 names since I've been a boy. Everybody likes to change it. That's a Morrison.
Euston, our final destination.
So there you are. You see, you've seen it all. Camden Junction South, this is called. Oh, they're asking me to do the impossible again. Pirate Castle. And if I were to come and look at this in 10 years' time, you know, which is perfectly possible. Today is 26th of October, as you saw, 2013. If we were in 23, the year 23, and I was just coming up doing 60, and I came down the same line, well, you might find about 20% of it would be actually different in some way. It'd be interesting to remember the bits that were there before, and interesting to compare it to what they put in its place. That's why, I think it's worth doing it. In the meantime, for those of you that don't know this area, which will be most of my viewers, I expect, some of you will have been here, but maybe most of you not, because I'm broadcasting this out to the whole world, of course. At least you get to see what it looks like coming into London from a new town, Hemel Hempstead, outside London, and millions of commuters do a journey a bit like this in England every working day of their lives, of course. Maybe they've long given up looking out of the window, or maybe they just look. They don't consciously look out, but subconsciously look out, and then bit by bit they've remembered every single thing that there is. And one day when they look up, they go, "Hey, I thought there was this building there, and it's gone." In the meantime, they managed to take it away, but they weren't really paying attention. But they remember it because they never purposely memorized it. But that's the way the long-term memory works. It samples what you don't realize it's doing. The conscious sampling function is a short-term function, according to gold list method and the hypotheses underpinning the gold list method, which you can argue with if you want, but somehow, for most people, it seems to work. So here we come, London Euston. There we are. It's going to gradually, very, very ponderously come into this station. These are the platforms. That's the platform side that we're going to get out on. And we'll stop and get out, and London awaits the journey time. Right, so this is High Holborn. It's off to work we go, Burn, as it says in the song. Unfortunately, no back.